Hello, Breakfast Club. It is Sister Danger here, your Tuesday host. And today I'm going to do a little bit of a response video to SiriusMined, who was yesterday. And I want to apologize for the pretty terrible sound and just my general setting here. I'm here on the East Coast in Maine visiting family, my mom for the holidays. So I'm currently sitting in the far room across the house from where everybody else is sleeping with the doors closed. And it's sort of echoey and hollowy, but I don't want to wake everybody up or disturb them. Also, because I am not at home, I lack my standard computer programs that allow me to video edit, so I'm not able to capture SiriusMind's video and then directly respond to it. So I have to, I've taken some notes on some of the things that he said, and then I'm just going to do the best that I can to respond to some of those things in handwritten form. So I guess let's just jump right into it. His video here yesterday on the Breakfast Club was called Whitewashed, and I will try to put a link to that, of course, in the low bar. And some of the things that he said in this video gave me pause for concern. So the first thing was right around the 1 minute and a 9-second mark, right around there, 109, 111, where he is talking about unconscious biases and making those the same as prejudice. So racism, as I understand it, is the is basically a biased opinion about somebody, a prejudicial opinion based specifically on their race. You know their race and you have some sort of dislike, feeling that is an untoward opinion about them based on this attribute of them. So when people speak about unconscious bias, they're talking about they're trying to make this into racism, but I am disagreeing with this very idea, because if you have a bias towards something, a person, based on any number of attributes, like everybody every day has some form of unconscious bias against other people. Maybe they are too tall, maybe they're too loud, maybe they seem imposing, maybe they are not a color or a race that you are comfortable with. There are all kinds. Maybe they're a gender that you've had bad experiences with in the past. We have all kinds of unconscious biases against people, and those may, to some extent or a greater extent, inform our actions. But in order to be racist, you must be aware that you dislike this person for those reasons. Otherwise, having an unconscious dislike of something means that you don't like vanilla ice cream, but you don't know why you don't like vanilla ice cream. And that means that we cannot automatically attribute your dislike of vanilla ice cream to you being racist against white things. We don't know why you don't like vanilla ice cream, because your bias against it is something that's unacknowledged and unidentified. It hasn't had a name put to it. So it could be a racial thing. It could be that you had a bad experience with this one vanilla ice cream. It could be that you're like Elphaba from Wicked, and perhaps you instinctively know that if you eat the vanilla ice cream, you're going to melt into a puddle of water and it will kill you. So I really sort of, I guess, resist this idea that we can automatically attribute this thing that's called unconscious bias to being racism. Because if you don't know why you don't like something, then we can't say that you don't like it specifically because of its race. It could be any number of reasons that are yet to be unidentified. And this gives rise in my mind to some other questions. For example, if I happen to not like vanilla ice cream because I don't want to like vanilla ice cream, I don't have to like vanilla ice cream, I can in fact dislike the flavor of all vanilla ice cream, how do you differentiate realistically between my dislike of vanilla ice cream and an unconscious bias that prejudices me against vanilla ice cream? In the real world, how that plays out in reality, those look like exactly the same thing. I can say I don't like vanilla ice cream, and you can immediately say, well, that's because you have an unconscious bias against it. And that isn't necessarily true, right? So why don't you like vanilla ice cream? Well, I don't know why I don't like vanilla ice cream. I just don't. Well, that's because you have an unconscious bias. And I have trouble with this argument. You can't assign that I have an unconscious bias that is being said in a way that is synonymous to prejudicial if it's unconscious and we therefore don't know what it is. So I really have trouble with that. Next on my little list that I wrote down here is that, well, he sort of goes on to say after that, that paternalism is another form of bigotry. And I'm wondering if what was meant there was patriarchy, because paternalism cannot be bigoted. Paternalism is a method of basically influencing how people make decisions. Usually the government or some governing agency influencing how the people under its control or umbrella make their decisions. Sometimes with and sometimes without their knowledge. So I'm not really sure where we get the statement that paternalism is bigoted. That doesn't really make any sense. The only way that it could be bigoted would be if the specific paternalistic mechanism that was being put into place singled people out based on their race or something to that. Then that attribute of an entire paternalistic machine would be bigoted, but as an overall way of functioning, a system of functioning, that didn't make any sense. So I kind of wondered if that was meant to be. And then we have this little comment here about the movie Hidden Numbers and how all these people are going to come out and say that, it's being super politically correct. I actually disagree with this, because the movie Hidden Numbers is, in fact, a movie about Black women and their achievements in the STEM sciences, aerospace, mathematics, industries. Why would anybody have an outcry against making a movie including Black women as the stars of the movie when the original story is about Black women? We didn't see any outcry like that when they did the movie Selma, for example. Nobody had a problem with that because the story is in fact about Black people. We see the outcry of this sort of shoving down your throat political correctness or social justice social justice activism, I would better say, when something is being changed to fit this social justice narrative, not when it's actually telling the real story. Nobody cares that you're using black people to do a movie about black people. That makes complete sense. We are upset about it when we change all male characters into all female characters, like in Ghostbusters, or when you completely go against the story, like in The Gunslinger, for example, and you take what is a very white and written into the story in such a way that the whiteness is impacting the conflict between a white character and a black character is one of the core storylines that's going on in this book throughout this series. But then you decide to just change the race of the main character in order. That is what political correctness, that is what social justice activism is. It's not making a cool story about the awesome things that those people did and then being true to that. It's when you're being untrue to what was there that the problem is raised. So the another one of the things that I wrote down about was Black History Month, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's very frustrating when people say that the other 11 months of the year are all White History Month. Not true. Black History Month is the month where Black people are exclusively focused upon, not the month where they get any attention at all. It's where they get exclusive and prominent attention above and beyond the everyday norm that is the rest of the year. And to imply that except for this one month, that there is nothing else in all of media and television and movies and articles and blogs, newspapers, that nowhere else Black people ever get a single mention except for this one month of the year is something of an absurd claim. I mean, I don't even have a television, and I can open, my computer in the morning, and there's plenty of diversity going on. It's not as if everybody that might not be a white person suddenly vanishes from the big wide world until Black History Month rolls around, and now we can talk about Black people. I don't know. It seems like a notion that is very hyperbolic, I guess. That's very exaggerated. And I wonder, I have this curiosity because all the time you hear this, well, you don't see these things happening because that's your white privilege, that's your male privilege, that's your whatever privilege. And so you're blind to those things. And yet I wonder, since I've been out here, just these few days, I've been watching Law and Order. The oldest, season 1. I mean, Law and Order has been on the television for more than 10 years or something like that. I don't know, but a long time. And I'm watching the very first season of it. There's Black characters, Asian characters, female characters, but I'm not even to season 2, and already the powerhouse ADA is a blonde white woman, and then doesn't Ice-T come on that show and stay there for ever as a cop, right? And plays a badass role. So, and I just kind of look at this and I think to myself, is it equally possible that people of color or Asians or whatever, there's all kinds of diversities, Latinos and whatnot. Is it possible that when they watch TV, that they are inclined to gloss over their own ethnicity and not it doesn't stick out to them. What sticks out to them is all the white people, because they're used to, having a family that is all black people or all Asians. That's what you're used to in your neighborhood or around you and interacting with. So when you see that on TV, that's what seems normal to you, and you don't pay attention to it. Therefore, you have this idea that those things are minimized on television when they are not necessarily. It isn't so. So, I guess that what I'm trying to say is I don't think that only white people suffer from some sort of magic. I can't see things that go on that I'm used to because they're average or common to me. So, and I guess that this last bit, about talking about Black History Month and the Selma, or sorry, not Selma, hidden numbers. I found this to be particularly upsetting. Towards the end of his video, he says, SiriusMined says that nothing really has changed all that much in society. There's all this prejudice and this, that, and the other. And I actually found myself thinking that, this was perhaps the most upsetting of all the things that he said. Because 50 years ago, we were spraying people with fire hoses. We were spitting on them. We were setting dogs upon them and beating them and kicking them and bludgeoning them to the point of hospitalization for protesting, for peaceful protesting, for sitting in diners and refusing to leave, for sitting in seats on buses and refusing to get up. And these people were suffering physical abuses in the course of their protest. And to say that here we are 50 years later and that nothing has changed, to me, that is this shows a bigger ignorance and a bigger disservice to your own history. I mean, what a way to just completely write off the terrible things that people, in the 60s and 50s, fought for. Black people and white people that were their allies. But to just say that nothing has changed, no progress has been made, the NAACP hasn't made all kinds of, advances and affirmative action. We have come a very long way since then. And how discrediting to them to say, it's still the same as it was when, grandpa was a little kid living in the Deep South. No, it isn't. And does that make things perfect? No, but my goodness, it certainly isn't, beating people down in the streets and finding them in dark alleys. Those things are outrageous. I'm not saying that they don't still happen and that we don't have crime problems and violence problems, but what a disservice to the struggles of the past to say that, and to even pretend like everything is just as bad today as it was. I do think that we as a species have a really long way to go, not just between blacks and whites, but between all different races and, different types of cultures. It is a difficult thing to integrate all of that, but, we are progressing. And in the grand scheme of things, the world is less violent. People do live longer lives, So anyway, this has turned into, it looks like a 20-minute video, and I guess I'm gonna go ahead and try to call it short. I don't have any of my intros or anything, and I apologize for that. But tomorrow is Nathan Brendan Masters, and I really hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. And you know, Carrie Fisher, she's rejoined the force, and that makes me sad, but it also makes me glad in a way, you know, that, right? So, Happy New Year to everybody, and I guess I will see you all next week.